how I can develop this is what are the characteristics of my upbringing as a professional that can actually help companies scale from seed or pre-seed, really idea generation, building the basic structure, and then scale, because that's very important. Normally, it's very hard, or usually it's very hard to find the skill sets that can work very early, that have that kind of mentality of going deep by yourself, and the skills that are required to actually scale up and be structured. Normally, it's a little bit of a challenge. So let me go a little bit, if you don't mind, through some experiences that I might elaborate a little bit here. I think it's quite important. Legal background. Boring, not boring. I have to admit that I only worked 10 months as a lawyer, but the legal background, I studied 4 years related to this, and has been quite key in any kind of deal negotiation, structuring of agreements, partnerships, looking at those kind of details, quite important. So I think that can really help in early stage companies and as they scale. Then a little bit more on the big picture and how do you negotiate. I was a key account manager for Unilever, delivered almost 20% year-on-year growth 2007, 8, and 9. 8 and 9 were the financial crisis. And I was delivering, I think in 2009 was 25% growth. Okay. Why? Because it's very strategic. You really need to, it's that 80-20 focus. I'm very strategic, and I'm like, okay, where is the big win? I'm focusing there. And I think that can really help us. Companies are trying to do B2B or B2B2C. And at the same time, I'm marketing. I drove pretty strong campaigns in terms of marketing for Unilever. And what I think can be relevant is I have my personal touch. And not only that I'm strategic about it, but I can also do by myself. This is a little example, okay, of a presentation I did with David Villa. Okay, you can see in parallel my other YouTube searches. But the interesting part, okay, this was in front of the press. David Villa was a national soccer player who had been the national scorer for Spain, the top scorer for Spain when Spain won the World Cup. And I think this is quite interesting because it helps you a little bit understand that I did this presentation. That's the press. I think the video will show it afterwards, and I'll add it here. You can see. I think here you can see. Okay, it's the Spanish press. Okay. We had, well, an international press at that time because we're talking about the #1 soccer player. Okay, that's a little bit long, but what I wanted to convey with that is that I have the capacity to manage the ad. I executed all this, and thinking in scale, thinking of how to making things big is quite my thing. I work for Samsung Strategy, kind of work with McKinsey partners that were driving there and kind of helped me really understand how can you be truly strategic? How you can communicate to C-level people? Okay. Then very important, HP 3D printing, transformative experience, because there is where I had to go deep tech. We're talking about industrial 3D printing and digital manufacturing. And I started the business. Okay. I was the first employee in Asia Pacific for, I think it was 16 months, rolled up my sleeve, did cold calling to Japan, absolute disaster, but learned enormously from the experience, build the sales and the application engineering team, work with the first customers. We're talking about really technical Japanese customers, some Korean, some Taiwanese, some from India that were really complicated deals that implied software, machinery, supplies of materials, material science. Okay, and that was quite key in terms of from zero. It's true, it was a big company, had the money behind it, but we were at the beginning, I had no resources. I had to find my way around absolutely everything. And then this last years, and I will extend a little bit more in startups like Xenium, like Shopback, a small VC firm that was kind of a startup in Taiwan. And I think I'll go a little bit more through this project afterwards, because I think it's quite interesting. But that project was 4-dimensional printing, and for Audi, we were trying to present what were the key alternatives to invest, and then execution, pure execution. Here you'll see a little bit the fancier part. Okay, this is a video. Okay, we did our own event, our own industry event in the middle of Singapore. Okay, very flashy with KOLs and all that. Okay, yes, beautiful. But the key thing is I was doing the presentation for the press. Okay, improvised, worked around. This is me. Sorry, I think I'm covering myself. Okay, improvised, worked on all this. And I improvised, actually prepared enormously, had to then improvise. I think there's a video, maybe not here, where I'm doing a bit of a show. And this is just, the beauty of this is not that I was doing this, the fancy part, is that actually then I got rolled up my sleeves and actually was promoting in the streets. Okay, I have some videos of that, but that's for another day. On me promoting on the streets, helping the team to get them to say like, okay, how are we going to get more audience? Okay, because you can see this is a pretty, this is a kind of very well decorated, very strongly branded place, but it's missing the attraction of people. So I put all the equipment, and I was on the road attracting people. So I think that's quite interesting. And then a little bit here, I'll explain a little bit more of a detail afterwards, but thinking of processes. This is a key thing, structured, and I built kind of like integration of Salesforce and HubSpot in different companies. And I think this is quite powerful for startups, because you need to think of the process early on, and you're like, well, no, it is absolutely crucial. At the beginning, you're just hustling, but afterwards you need to build it. It has to, and if it's not built fast and early, you will pay a very high price afterwards trying to integrate the data from an old system, from an Excel sheet, from a Trello, from all this. If you can scale the idea as fast as possible, this will have enormous implications. So I think those are the qualities that can help. And I can show a little bit more about what the structure and focus on structure can be. But I think this is quite helpful in terms of understanding how I can be of aid in scaling companies from the base to growth.